I'm checking to see if Zev was going to be able to get on.
How's Zev doing?
I got an email from him. I thought it was one issue. He had told me that they put him on medication and it makes him very tired and therefore hard to him forget to shul. That's why he hasn't been either in davening or in daf. But then I got an email from him indicating that in his good ear, he's been having some problems with hearing. So that is what. Right. Right, exactly. He and others. Okay. Our learning sponsors today, Friends of Nina Year Learning, Friends of Nina Monester, Nechama Hasna Bad Yitzchak Aharon, many friends of Stephen Vigdor, Lezechen Ishmat Simcha Melech Ben Meir Leib Halevi, friends of Marcy Kurtz in memory of her great niece, Leah Bracha, Isaac and Evelyn Blachor in memory of his sister, Chaya Rachel Bas Isser, friends of Leonie Meiselman, Leah in her memory, of course, Leah Sabra Bat Chanoch Zundel. A month of learning, Sam and Shifra Coleman in memory of his mother, Sarah Rachel Bas Avram, Brown and Susan Podolsky in memory of his father, Tzvi Ben Pinchas. A week of learning by Judy and Ari Cohen in memory of her mother, Hinda Bat Moshe Zechariah Halevi, and his father, Fega Bat Yechiel. Chaim Aber, in memory of his wife, Esther Bas Yaakov. Manny Wertman in memory of his wife, Chaya Sarah Bat Alta Yosef. Today is the 27th, right? And therefore we have a day of learning by B. Worden in memory of her father-in-law, Shlomo Ben Yitzchak Halevi, also by Elaine and Harold Rin in memory of her grandfather, Yitzchak Yehuda Ben Meir Tzvi. Okay? And as we heard from the Rav this morning, we wish refuah shlema to a multiple number of people, okay, who are undergoing procedures. Okay. I'm just going to get some water and then we will get underway.
Thank you. You said the next CM is January 14th. 14th?
Yeah.
No, it's after the 14th. Like
Not what it says. It's 25 on the phone.
24, something like that.
No, my law is wrong. Wait, let me verify that. You could be right. You could be right. That's 24th. You're right. Yep.
I remember because it's right after my birthday.
Oh, there's a big birthday the next day. Big celebration the next day.
What?
The next day. 25th.
Yeah.
Yishka.
No, not December.
Yes, I'm sure.
January. Okay. All right. I am going to give a short introduction to the Masechet. Michael gave a very nice introduction yesterday. However, there were a couple of things that I just wanted to review and to go into. Okay. All right. And I'm sharing part of this with you from the introduction to the first parak from the Koren edition. Okay. First thing is to review the pasuk. When a man takes a vow to the Lord or swears an oath to bind his soul with a bond, he shall not profane his word. He shall do according to all that proceeds out of his mouth. So that pasuk from Bamidbar chapter 30, verse 3, okay, is the key pasuk that we need to keep in mind in regards to the whole topic of oaths, vows, nedarim, etc., etc. Okay. Now, in that pasuk, you'll notice it says vow, and it also says oath, both in the same pasuk. That is a hint to one of the things that the Gemara is going to be dealing with. Okay, that one, an oath, a vow is a neder, a shavua. Okay, an oath is a shavua. Right? And so are they the same things or are they not the same things? That's number one. Number two, since the two of them are both in the same pasuk, okay, how come when we're going to get and read the first Mishnah, okay, that there is another term, I'm going to say the phrase,
Interject.
thank you, that's what I was looking for, interjected between them. Okay, as we're going to see in a moment in the Mishnah. Okay, right? So that's going to have to be a question that ultimately the Gemara is going to give. Okay, and third of all, okay, right, we're going to see that here it clearly spells the word vow or neder, oath, okay? And the Gemara is going to say, hold on a second. Okay, what about what we'll call alternative terms? Is what Koren called it. All right, the Hebrew is going to be kinui, all right, or yad, right? And we'll explain those.
They're different things.
They're different things. We're going to explain those in just a second. Okay. But what about the fact, right? And our pasuk does not, however, that pasuk doesn't mention the term nazir. But a previous pasuk tells us, speak to the children of Israel and say unto them, when either a man or a woman shall clear utterly a vow, the vow of a Nazirite, to consecrate himself to the Lord. So in the pasuk dealing with a Nazir, we have the same word vow. Okay, so now we begin to understand that there must be some association between vows, oaths, and taking on the status of a Nazir. Okay, what is the parallel? Conceptually, the parallel is if I say a neder, that something is going to be forbidden to me. Likewise, when a person takes on Nazariteship, things are prohibited to that person. Okay, so that's our conceptual parallel, besides the textual parallel of the word vow in the two psukim. Okay, everybody with me so far, right? Okay, now that we've clarified that, okay, we're almost ready to start the text, except for one other thing, okay? There is another example that neither of the psukim refer to that we need to keep introduced, and that is the term cherem, okay? What might be a cherem, what we might do, there are actually two kinds of cherem, and if you have time, I strongly suggest to read the Art Scroll introduction to the Masechet. It's good, although I felt that the discussion of the Ran was apologetics, but that's a separate topic. Okay, in any case, the point is, cherem means you've dedicated something, right? Primarily to the temple or to the Kohen. If you've dedicated, if it becomes hekdesh, what happens? It's forbidden for you to use. So as a result, then it becomes in the same conceptual category as something that you might make a neder on. So, okay? Or something. But if you made it hekdesh, that's true. But you're the one who made it hekdesh, therefore it's forbidden for you, similarly to the concept of you're taking a neder and making something similar forbidden to you. Okay, so I just wanted to bring that in because our psukim does not make a textual connection, but there is a conceptual connection. Okay, all right. Having presented it that way, I think we're all ready now to go into the text. Right? So it's a little different, like I said, than what Michael did, but I wanted to clarify some of the elements. Okay, on Bet Amud Aleph as we start today. Kol kinuye nedarim kinedarim. All right, we're going to explain kinui here as alternative expressions or colloquial expressions or nicknames. Okay, all three concepts are valid. The problem is, as the Gemara is going to ultimately tell us, how come you're starting off with these terms when you haven't explained to us
What the Yikarnet is.
what the ikar, exactly, what the essential concept of a neder is. Okay, the assumption is you're aware of it, right? So we're saying, kol kinui, kinedarim, any of these alternative colloquial or nicknames for vows are equivalent to actually saying a vow. V'charamim, and likewise any colloquial alternative phrases for cherem, for dedicating something, is like a statement of actual cherem. Okay, and remember we said that that could be in multiple items. We may get to that in more detail. Okay. Sha'u shavuot, again, kol kinuye, we need to understand here. Any nicknames, colloquial names, alternative expressions for oaths, kishvuot, is parallel to an oath. Unizirut, again, kol kinuye, we have to keep in mind in ahead. For nizirut, okay, kin nizirut, as is done, okay? It's as if one said Nazir itself, okay? So these are alternative, okay, formulas, okay? For whether it's a vow, it's a cherem, a dedication, a shavua, an oath, or a Nazirite, or, okay, or taking on a Nazirut. Okay? Next part of the Mishnah, okay? That we'll call the Resha. Now we go to the middle part of the Resha, okay? Ha'omer lechavero, one who says to his neighbor, friend, colleague, okay? Modarni mimach, okay? In other words, using another kind of expression to say that I am making some sort of a vow with you, okay? And remember, a neder implies clearly that you're forbidding a heftza, a object, whereas a shavua tells us it's a based regards to a personal status, okay? Right? Mufrashani mimcha. Okay, I'm separating myself from you. Miruchkani mimcha, I'm distancing myself from you. Sha'ani ochel lach. Okay, so in other words, all of those possible, I'll call it for the moment, introductory statements that imply a vow, these are the kind of kinuyim, these are the kind of alternative phrases, right? And then you add shani ochelach, that I'm not going to, I separate myself from eating any of your food. V'shani to'emlach, or I separate myself, or I distance myself, or etc., from tasting any of your food. And as Michael said yesterday, that's not even the question of a shiur. Right? What happens? Asur. That food stuff is forbidden. Next part. What happens if the individual uses an alternative phrase or formula in the following? Menudah anilach. That I am menudah. I am, how do you want to think it? All right.
I didn't translate it because I wanted to, I figured I would wait till you could see it.
Excommunicated or detached?
I like detached here better.
The Gemara actually mentions some, when they put some, when they excommunicate somebody.
It's in nidui,
Need
right?
doing, right.
Right, it's nidui. The
Right.
problem,
It's very hard to translate into
English.
an English.
right. The problem I have, you're right, Alan. The problem I have is, remember, we've seen in the past that the Gemara has different levels of excommunication. Shamta, Nidui, etc. Cherem. Okay? Okay. So that's why let's go right now with the phrase detached, because that's more of a parallel to the phrases that we saw before, mifrushani, miruchkani, etc. Okay?
None of those phrases have any secular meaning, and so it's always, they wrote just.
Okay. Whereas menudeh has, okay. All right. So I'm not disagreeing with how you're pointing out that Art Scroll translates it. I'm just trying to, yeah. No, I'm just trying to clarify for our purposes. So why should that then be a problematic phrase, a problematic kinui, compared to the others that we've already seen? The Mishnah goes on and says to us, Rabbi Akiva haya chochech. Rabbi Akiva was struggling with regards to the use of that particular phrase. Okay, maybe because it has, okay, again, coming back what Alan was just saying, a good point. Maybe it has that double entendre, okay, of being separate, detached, or the entendre of excommunication. Okay, so that, but is the Gemara going to have to address this issue?
Sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Is it true that any net or somebody makes that he won't do something can't be against the Torah?
Let's wait and see. It's a good question.
Yeah.
Okay, but okay. In other words, if I say, I'm
The
going
Gemara
to,
does discuss that.
okay, it discusses it. I'm going to flip your question a little bit this way. When I make the neder, I have to prohibit something to myself that is not Torah already mandated as a prohibition.
Okay, but as not a prohibition, matzah is a say. So
We'll get to that. Okay. I can't say, for example, this bread I will no longer eat because to me it's like pork. That's not a valid neder, because pork is inherently prohibited d'oraita. Okay.
That's correct.
All right.
You can't say believe shav,
Right.
believe shvua. Say you believe that.
Okay. Okay. So that's our mission. Okay. Now we go into the fun stuff. Okay. And I'm going to suggest to you that what we're going to see here as we go into this, just the first Amud, okay, the second Amud, this particular piece of Gemara, the Gemara seems, at least to me, to be dealing with a stylistic question, literary structure initially, as opposed to content.
Correct.
And what it's going to do is going to tell us something and say, well, given the style of our Mishnah, maybe we'll explain it this way and give examples. And then it's going to challenge that and say, well, maybe there's a different style. And then it's going to challenge that. So that's why I'm calling this initial discussion stylistic or literary. Okay? All right. So the Gemara first says, Kol kinuye nidarim kinidarim. Our Mishnah started off, excuse me, by listing 4 items, I'm saying, that are similar to nidarim. What were the 4 items? Nidarim, Haramim, Shavuot, and Nazir. It listed these 4 items, okay? Right? So, and then it asks, Ma'ishna Gabe Nazir. How is that different from the discussion elsewhere in the Gemara where it lists aspects of Nazir? All right? Why? because in the aspects of where it listed Nazir, Delo Katane Laho Lekuhu, it did not list all of these other items. Okay? Umaishna Gabe Nidarim, and so what's so unique or a parallel to Nidarim, the Katani Lakuhu, that the Tana decided to teach these other items along with Nidarim. Okay? So the Gemara tries to come up and explain why did the Tana teach it one way in one place and another way in another place. Okay? So it gives a first suggested answer. Mishum de neder ushvua ktive gabe hadade. Why? Because neder, right, vow, and shvua, oath, are taught together in the same pasuk. And we read that pasuk. That was Bamidbar 30, verse 3, right? And I pointed that out. Tane Tartan, that teach the two of them. V'kevan de Tane Tartan. Okay, and since they taught, the pasuk taught the two of them, Tane Lekulhu. The Tana also taught other items that were parallel, similar to them. Okay, so the Gemara now says, wait a second, if Neder and Shavur were mentioned in the same pasuk, right? V'litnei kinui Shavuot batar. So after teaching Kol Kenuye Nidarim, why didn't our Tana then teach as the next segment of our Mishnah, Kinui Shavuot, immediately afterwards? Why all of a sudden interrupt with the phrase Kinui Charamim? Okay? So that's why he's saying, V'litnei Kinui Shavuot Batar Nidarim. The Gemara attempts to answer again the question. Ide detana nidarim, since it already taught the example of nidarim, the mitzar chavtza, where it prohibits an object, right? The mitzar alei, right? The mitzar chavtza alei, it prohibited an object on him, on the person who made the statement. Tana nami charamim, the mitzar chavtza alei. It also went and proceeded to teach about charamim, these dedications, where also an object is prohibited on the person. Why? Because we said the person made that either hekdesh to the Beis HaMikdash, and we write it's forbidden to other people too, okay, but particularly the person who made it, or forbidden to because he assigned it to a particular Kohen. Okay? And the Gemara continues, La'afuke shvua deka'asar nafshe min chefza, to the exclusion then of an oath where he forbids himself from an object. That would be the difference. Okay? Now, that's the first part. Let's go on. Second part. Patach b'kinuyim. Our Mishnah opened up and began with this discussion of what we call equivalent terms, alternative terms, okay? In this case. Why it began, Kol Kinuye Nidarim, Umefaresh Yadot. But then after it started talking about these alternative terms, it started to then specify what we'll call Yadot, partial declarations. Okay? Right? The example, by the way, that either Art Scroll or Koren gave was the same way you have a handle on a pot. Okay? So this is a handle, a partial, okay, declaration of either the vow or the oath or etc. Okay? Ha'omer, okay, how do we know that? because our Mishnah continued by telling us, Ha'omer lechavero moder ani mimcha, one who says to his friend, I vow the following from you. V'tu, and furthermore, yadot inshe, okay? But teaching the concept and explanation, the halachas of yadot inshe, that was forgotten.
Yeah, the Mishnah didn't mention.
Doesn't discuss it. Ire bahom, okay, it brings these, and therefore, chasuri mixra v'hachi katani, something must be missing in our Mishnah, and this is how we have to teach it. Okay, and now look at the way the text phrases and rewords our first lines of our Mishnah. Kol kinuye nidarim kin nidarim. Okay, any alternative expressions for vows are like vows. V'yadot, and partial expressions of vows, of nidarim, kinidarim, are also like full vows. And then the Gemara suggests, v'lifrush kinuyim bereisha. So let them specify, okay, what kind of kinuyim, what kind of alternative expressions at the outset of our Mishnah. Hahu desalik mine. Okay, here we can say we take away from this.
No,
Okay,
from what in other words, the Mishnah said yadas, and so the Mishnah went to discuss the yadas, which is called the Salik Minei, which is the last article.
Okay, so what happens? Hahu. Okay, so in other words, why then? Why then did it jump from discussing kinuyim to yados? The answer is, okay, hahu desalik minei, hahu mefaresh bereish. It began by discussing what it cited last.
That's correct.
Okay, that's what it did.
Right.
Okay, all right. So that's the point. All right. Hahu mefaresh bereisha, but the Gemara says maybe it should have explained. In other words, it was explaining what was the most recent item first.
Right.
Okay.
Even though there were items on the list before that, but it's discussing
Right.
the last.
Okay, and now the Gemara is going to try to present to us a series of parallel examples to show that normally a Mishnah will often be in a what I've told you sometimes is a chiastic structure. A, B, and then it starts explaining B first, and then goes back to A. Okay. All right. All right. So what's the example? First example. Bameh madlikin ubameh ein madlikin. Right? From Gemara Shabbos. Right? What do we light and with what don't we light? Ein madlikin v'chulei. We don't like. We don't, okay? Second example. Bameh tomnin ubameh ein tomnin. With what do we cover and with what don't we cover? Ein tomnin, and we don't cover. Third example. Bameh isha yotzah ubameh eina yotzah. With what the jewelry or cosmetics can a woman go out on Shabbos, and with what can't she go out? Lo teitzeh isha, a woman cannot go out, etc. Okay, so then given these examples, b'chol hecha de patach lo mefaresh bereisha, asks the Gemara, and you're saying, are there no examples where when the Mishnah opens a statement, it doesn't begin to explain that statement, the A part first? Isn't there no examples? Vahatnan, okay? But aren't we taught elsewhere in other Mishnayot, specifically that? Case number one, Yesh nochalim umanchilin. There are those who inherit and those who bequeath. Nochlin velo manchilin. Okay, we inherit and don't bequeath. Second example, the elu nochlin umanchilin, and no, I'm sorry, that's still part of that first example. And these inherit and bequeath. Second example, where we have A, B, but then the Mishnah went on to explain A, B. Okay, yesh mutarot leba'alehen va'asurot liyabama. There are those that are permitted to their husbands and forbidden to their brothers-in-law. Mutarot liyabamehem va'asurot leba'alehen. Permitted to their brothers-in-law, forbidden to their husbands. Ve'elu mutarot leba'alehen va'asurot liyabamehen. And these are the ones that are permitted to their husbands and forbidden to their brothers-in-law. So that was a second example
You
of
start explaining the A.
A, B, and then you start explaining with the A phrase. Okay, that's another example. Yesh te'unot shemen ulevona. There are those that require both oil and frankincense. Shemen velo levona. Oil and without frankincense. Ve'elu te'unot shemen ulevona. And these are the ones that require oil and frankincense. Another example, this is a fourth example. Yesh te'unot hagasha ve'en te'unot tnufa. There are those offerings, right, that require bringing close, and those, right, that don't require waving. Tnufa velo hagasha, that require waving, but don't require bringing close. Ve'elu te'unot hagasha. Okay, so that's another example. Yesh bechor lenachala. There is another example, right? There is a firstborn for inheritance. Ve'ein bechor lekohen, but not a firstborn for a pidyon ben. Bechor lekohen, firstborn for a pidyon ben. Ve'ein bechor lenachala, but no firstborn for inheritance. Ve'ezu bechor lenachala, ve'ein bechor lekohen. And what then is the firstborn for inheritance and not for pidyon ben? So we see quite a number of examples. In fact, more cited now in the Gemara where they go A, B, than A, B, B, A. At least what we've seen so far. So that's why I'm saying it seems to be initially a stylistic problem, literary problem that the rabbis are raising here. Okay, what happens? So the Gemara tries to come up with an answer. Halan, these examples, mishum da avushu le. Why? Because there are many clauses in the particular Mishnah. Maybe that's the reason that they follow the A, B order. Okay? Let me pray. Okay? Hahu, the patach beresha. Okay? And that's why they began with the earlier statement. But here, right? What about the following? Okay? This is a challenge to that explanation. Bameh behema yotza, ubameh ena yotza. What about the example that says, in what case does the animal go out? In what case doesn't it go out? Dolo ifsha, where there are not a lot of clauses in that phrase, right? Ukatani yotze gamal. But then immediately it continues with the A component, right? That's the section. So that's based, so in other words, that would challenge the initial interpretation of the Gemara to say it's based on multiple sections or multiple clauses in the first section. Okay, I'm just going to go over a tiny bit here. Ela lav dafka, but rather what we say, Okay, and if you look at the Rashi also has to deal with this. Excuse me. Okay, he said by saying ha damart the Tana lo diek, the fact that he says that the Tana wasn't specific. Okay, lahai mefaresh beresha, the zimnin mefaresh. In other words, at times taught one way, at times not other way. Right. So let's just finish up. Zimnin mefaresh hahu de patach beresha. At times he began his more specific interpretation with what he started. Zimnin hahu the salek mefaresh beresha. And at other times, he started his detailed explanation with what was most recently mentioned, what he left off. Okay, and that's where we're going to stop today. Okay, with picking up with V'ibayat Ema tomorrow. Okay.
All right.
Okay. Thanks for jogging right there. Okay.
Good day, gentlemen.
Take care.